what are some of the more common symptoms that you see in people that are indicators that they may need to think about making some type of a shift?
Yeah, like those indicators that show them something needs to change here. Yeah. Every time someone books a discovery call with me, where we talk about if my kind of coaching is the right thing for them, I always say, I'm like, you've booked this call because we don't know what it is yet, but it feels like something needs to change. That could be a complete new career. It could be a career pivot. It could be talking to your manager and talking about how you can change things at work. But like, I'm so happy that you've come to talk to me today, because now we can we can acknowledge it feels like something needs to change.
Welcome to the Personal Mastery and Growth Podcast, where we explore the keys to unlocking your full potential and living your best life. I'm your host, Jose Johnson. Whether you're looking to make a breakthrough, overcome a challenge, or simply live with greater clarity, joy, and purpose, you'll find the tools and inspirations you need right here. So let's start your journey towards personal mastery and growth right now. Welcome back to the Personal Mastery and Growth Podcast, your go-to resource for practical tips, insightful research, and inspiring stories to help you unlock your full potential. I'm your host, Jose Johnson, and I am an expert in mindfulness, mindset, and peak performance. And I'm thrilled to have you with me today. And today we're going to take a dive into the topic of career, jobs, passion, and fulfillment. And I can't do this on my own, so I invited a very special guest. She is a wonderful coach and friend, and she is going to be my first official guest here on the Personal Mastery and Growth Podcast. Her specialty is career coaching and helping clients find fulfillment in their lives. So let's welcome to the Personal Mastery and Growth Podcast, Mabel Bachini.
Oh, thanks, friend. Such good pronunciation of my name. I appreciate it.
I worked on that really hard. So, Mabel, it's a pleasure to sit down and talk with you and to get your perspective, because in the coaching world, as we are both in, the whole purpose of being a coach is to help to provide a different level of perspective and insight to someone on the problems they're facing.
Yeah.
So I think the more ways we can look at a problem, the easier it's going to be to solve them. So having another coach on here to talk about things from your unique perspective, I think is going to be very, very beneficial to our listeners.
Yeah, I love that. Just getting different views and different perspectives. And I remember when I was in coaching school years ago, the principle of just like realizing that there could be more than one way to solve a problem, and that we have all these different ideas. And with that comes like freedom of not feeling trapped in this idea that there's only one right way to do things. So I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's just dive in to the deep end.
Cool.
Just to start with. We're not going to waste any time today. So from your perspective and your experience, why do you think so many people are feeling trapped or unfulfilled in their chosen careers?
Oh, yeah. Societal expectations, changing of society. I think it's nice to notice how, like, 200 years ago, to me, careers were a lot more about survival, and it was a lot more about I will do the jobs that I am able to do so that I can earn money to put food on the table and to survive. And now all of a sudden there's become this like fulfillment side of careers as well, where we have like the privilege and the opportunity to actually have our careers be something that we enjoy. And I think with that, it's wonderful and it's a gift and it's amazing that we can do that. And it's also kind of overwhelming to go, well, hang on a second, but how do I do this? So I think people often feel overwhelmed. They don't want to make the wrong decision when they change careers. And I think also there are these societal expectations of what your career should look like and what it should involve. And people get caught up in that, and it feels scary to just follow the thing that is really what you want to follow, not what your parents think is the right thing to follow or your friendship group thinks is the right thing to follow.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's become more prevalent where well, I guess it's really not that new of a thing, because even in the old days, I mean, back when I was a kid, even before then, where you would follow the family business or things
Yeah.
like that. But now it seems in some ways even more intense, where people are trying to create careers for their kids when they're not even in school yet. They're trying to pick out things. They're trying to pick the best schools for them. They're trying to set them up for success,
Yeah.
which I think sometimes is putting too much stress on them, and it's leading to them making decisions based on making other people happy, as opposed to really focusing on what their unique calling is.
Yeah, I think that's nice. Of like, mum and dad are trying their best, and they're like having this college fund so that we can send our child to like a really prestigious school, and we're helping them with academics and all this kind of stuff. But like, but maybe forgetting the side of like, but what does my child really want to do? What's going to feel good for them? And I was talking to my brother about this the other day. My brother's visiting right now from England, and he's like gone on his own journey of realizing that he went to university to study the thing that he thought he was good at. And so he was like, well, school is all about academics and all about getting good grades, so I guess I should study the thing that I know I can get good grades in, and then it's natural to have a career in that. And he did that for 2 years of college, and then he was like, hang on a second, I've completely lost interest in this, and I don't actually want to do this, and it's going to be really hard to have a career in something that I'm actually not interested in. So yeah, I agree. Like, we put a lot of pressure on kids from a really young age to like succeed.
Yeah. So when a client comes to you and they are either contemplating making an intentional shift in their career, or they're just so freaking burnt out that they've got to get out,
Yeah.
what are some of the first steps that you take people through to help them find the right path for them?
Yeah, that is a lovely question. I think I've said this to you before. Like, sometimes people come in and they're looking for a quick fix. They're looking for, I don't like my job and I just want to love my job, and to me, there isn't really a quick fix. It's about really doing this kind of inner discovery process of, well, what do I love? What makes me happy? What kind of life do I want to live? What are my priorities? What are my values? And then what kind of career fits that? So when I meet someone and we decide we want to start working together, first of all, we look at mindset, because this is a big thing that's going to be part of the journey the whole way through. And then we do a discovery, and I call it a self-discovery, and we look at them and who they are, and who, what they loved doing when they were a kid, and just kind of like pulling back the layers of kind of how they've been socialized to think or behave or whatever, and just getting to like, well, what's really them, like at their core, what do they love and who are they, and then from that we'll go and we'll start exploring the kind of careers that would fit with that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's such a great thing to do, because I think a lot of people, when they're trying to choose a career, and I see this particularly in younger people, when they're getting ready to go to college and things like that, it's either, what am I good at?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Or it's, what do I think is going to make the most money?
Indeed.
And those two don't always line up. And, you may be good at something and there may be very limited money, in that profession. So if you do that and you go into it with the idea that I'm going to make, I want to be a teacher, and it's a great noble profession, but if you're going to be a teacher, you can't expect to make $1 million a year being a teacher, being a teacher.
Yeah.
Without side hustles, obviously.
Yeah.
And if you go into something like you want to be a stock trader or something like that, or a high-powered attorney that's going to make a lot of money, but there's something in you that really doesn't like stress and pressure, and you want to have kind of a laid-back lifestyle, well, that's not in alignment with that end result. So when you're taking somebody through that discovery process, how do you help them to get that clarity on not just what they want to achieve, but the cost that's involved in that achievement, what things they may need to change about their perspectives or, have to adjust in their pursuit of their career?
Yeah, I love that. That's a good question, because it's like, to me, it's like it's really difficult to have absolutely everything. So for your top priorities, what are you willing to be more flexible on or sacrifice? Was it like, what's he called? But he said, do we avoid swearing?
No, we don't avoid swearing.
Oh, wonderful. So he said it's like you have to choose your shit sandwich. Like, what's the thing that it's okay for you to be challenging because you get to have all these other benefits. So I think just really prioritizing what is most important to me, and so and understanding like the different aspects of fulfillment and alignment for you. So for me, I have had to learn through my coaching that I'm a person who's very impact motivated, and I want to really be doing work that feels within my skill set and within my passions, and I'm willing to sacrifice like stability. I'm willing to sacrifice like sometimes working on the weekends, these other qualities, to get to have this like real fulfillment in my work. But I've had to understand that not everyone is like that, and some people want financial security and they want a regular paycheck every week, or they want to not have to work overtime. And that's been a really good thing for me to learn, that like different personality types and different people have different priorities in their careers. So what we do is we look at it from a perspective when we're doing this discovery. We look at things that you love, your passions, things that you are good at naturally, and things that you've learned to be good at. Not that you'll want to pursue all of them in your career, but just to understand what they all are. Your personality and what that might tell you about the kind of career and lifestyle that you want, and then how you want to live, which is all about, do you want to have time to go kayaking on the weekends? Do you want to have flexibility so you can travel? All of that kind of stuff. And then we build this thing called a compass, and I call it a career compass. That's the name of my coaching program. And it includes all these different things like, okay, what are my best skills that I really want to be leading in with my career? But also like, what am I willing to sacrifice and do to get those top priorities? So that might mean like I'm willing to take a pay cut, or I'm willing to go back to school for 2-3 years. But you also might not be willing to do that. So I love that thing that you raise of, it's not about having everything perfect. It's about saying, to get the things that I really want, what am I willing to be more flexible on?
Yeah. And do you see that people that come to you generally have, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, but they just really don't have a deep level of self-awareness?
Tell me more about that.
Well, what I mean by that is that, if you knew what your purpose was, if you knew what your passions were, if you knew what your strengths were, if you knew what your negotiables and your non-negotiables were, and you were crystal clear on those things, then you probably wouldn't need the help of a coach, because you'd have all the answers. But I think, from my perspective, like a lot of people that come to me that, for the various things that I coach in, they just don't have the answers. They're dealing with a symptom. So something is bothering them. They have a pain, but they're not quite sure what's causing that pain. And then because they don't know what's causing it, then they really don't know how to go about fixing it.
Yes. So I think, I'm curious what you think about this, but I think that what we're kind of building is self-awareness through these coaching sessions, and we're building it so that you can get more clarity now, but also so you can learn the practice of noticing in the future, this feels good to me, this doesn't feel good to me. And that's where I think mindfulness is a big part of this. So outside of my coaching work, I also teach mindfulness, mostly with kids, and I think that practice of pausing and noticing is really important here to build self-awareness of what is really most important to me, what will really feel good to me in my career, what will feel aligned to me in my career. So I love that. I think it's like the practice of building self-awareness.
That to me is, we're constantly struggling with that. Even
me too. I am.
We all are, because everything has changed. Everything in the universe has changed, and where you were 4 years ago or 40 years ago for me, I'm a different person.
Yeah.
You know, and everything is situational. And so when you are always looking through the lens of the past, it's very difficult to create the future that you want to have.
Yeah.
And you're kind of stuck in this, you get stuck in this spot.
Yeah.
And that ability to look in the mirror and to say, you know, ask yourself some of the tough questions. You know, am I happy? If I'm not happy, what would make me happy? What needs to change? What needs to stay the same? And like you were saying, to provide a framework or a toolbox for people to be able to do that, because I'm a firm believer in this idea that how you do anything is how you do everything. And so the skills that you would need to gain that kind of clarity and self-awareness in terms of your career path are the same things that you would need to do in terms of building your relationships or to just find general happiness and, you know, health in life.
Yeah.
So when you're looking though in the framework of career and how that affects the individual, what are some of the more common symptoms that you see in people that are indicators that they may need to think about making some type of a shift?
Yeah, like those indicators that show them something needs to change here. Yeah. Every time someone books a discovery call with me, where we talk about if my kind of coaching is the right thing for them, I always say, I'm like, you've booked this call because we don't know what it is yet, but it feels like something needs to change. That could be a complete new career. It could be a career pivot. It could be talking to your manager and talking about how you can change things at work. But like, I'm so happy that you've come to talk to me today, because now we can we can acknowledge it feels like something needs to change. So I think typical symptoms, I notice there's a big range of symptoms and each person experiences different ones, but it tends to be people who are really stressed to the point where they are upset about their situation. And you can see that when they're talking about work, like they get emotional because they're upset. And I really think, to me, what it is it's a symptom of, frequently I say, I feel just like not being aligned, not feeling aligned, feeling like something is wrong inside. Like, you know, if you have like two jigsaw pieces, like they're just not lining up, it doesn't feel good and it feels awkward. So getting to the point where I used to have this in my old job, because I do what I do now because I used to be in a career that just didn't feel right to me, when like at least half of Sunday is kind of has this like dark cloud over it, because you know that Monday is coming. Like, you call it the Sunday scaries, but just like even your free time being impacted negatively because you're thinking about having to go into work, feeling stressed in the morning, not wanting to go in, feeling unconfident in what you're doing because you're not really operating in like your best skill set, or you feel like the culture just isn't you, so you're kind of having to hide your real self, feeling so burnt out that you even sometimes have physical symptoms, like you get headaches, feeling anxious, and then on the other side, just feeling really bored. So I've had clients who, like, they're just really bored with their job and they just count down the minutes. But what I've noticed with multiple clients is that they have that boredom, and then the further they go into feeling like it's time to leave their job, that boredom turns into anxiety. So those are some of the symptoms I notice.
Yeah, well, those are...
They're not nice.
They're not nice.
They're not
symptoms.
enjoyable.
Yeah. So if we took the flip side of that,
Yeah.
Right, if you're saying to someone, you know, what would you want your ideal situation to look like and feel like? What do you think are kind of the trademarks of someone who's has a happy and a healthy relationship with their work?
Yeah, that's lovely. So, and we've talked about this before, I think, because we've just chatted as friends, that something I notice a lot of people wanting is more creativity in their work. And I feel like what I notice is that what I often translate that to mean is also just feeling more aligned and feeling more like you get to be you at work, and you don't have to kind of think in your head about what the right response should be, because you're just getting to be you. So you just get to say what is real to you, and you don't have to hide or pretend or perform at work. You just get to be yourself. I think that's a big thing. I think, yes, I think we all feel stressed at work, and I think stress is a normal thing, and to completely avoid it, I think, would mean having to not engage in like multiple areas of life, but having stress that you can handle, and having a work environment that supports you and listens to you in those moments when you feel stressed. But I think really just like feeling aligned is a big thing, and that just looks really different from loads of people. Like, some people want to throw themselves into their work, other people want to not work overtime so they get to spend time with their family.
Yeah, I think that as we have been talking about clarity, I think clarity is the key thing, knowing what you want and also knowing what you don't want.
Yeah.
And then just making those decisions and being clear on it, because there is that trade-off, like you were saying, there's always going to be that trade-off. And if you want to climb the corporate ladder, that is going to mean that you're going to have to work those extra hours.
Yeah.
And if that's not something that you really want or need to be doing at that moment, if you've got a newborn child at home, working all those extra hours is probably not going to be beneficial for your relationships, your household things. But if that is what you want to do and you do have the opportunity, it's like not feeling guilty about the choices that you make. And I think too many of us do, if we don't, first of all, we don't have the clarity, but then when we do have the clarity, we're always second guessing, ourselves.
Yeah. And to me, I kind of hear in that, like zooming out a little bit and going kind of bigger picture. How do I really want to feel in my life? And what are some goals that I really have with my life, particularly related to kids? One thing that I talk about with clients a lot is like, do you want to have kids, and what do you want your career to look like when you have kids? Because that to me is something that it's good to think about, even if you're not going to have kids for like 5 or even like 7 years or whatever, to just be thinking about that, to be thinking like, am I going into a career that is conducive with like being able to go part-time or having a more flexible schedule when I have kids? And so I think kind of zooming out and just saying, what do I want my life to be like? How do I want to feel in my days? And I think from that, for me, that has helped me have the confidence to not feel so guilty about saying like, do you know, I'm going to make this decision. I'm going to say, working overtime isn't right for me. So I'm going to only look for opportunities where I get to follow what feels right for me. Yeah.
So if we look at like the career arc, right? So every year we have new people entering the workforce.
Yeah.
And, like my youngest stepdaughter just graduated from college. And, so she's starting a new career. And then you have people that are on the other end of the spectrum, people like me who have been in the workforce for, a long time. And who, I've made lots of pivots and shifts throughout my life.
Yeah.
So as a coach, you're going to be dealing with people all along that entire continuum, people who are just trying to figure out what they want to do as their first like real career, as opposed to just, working at the pizza shop. And then you're going to have people that have invested decades in something and they're feeling like there's a pull for them to do something different.
Yeah.
So what are the similarities between those two, and what are the distinct differences, and how you would help somebody to make a very conscious decision?
I love that kind of, what's the difference between those people who are going into their careers for the first time versus those people who have been in their career for 20 whatever years and are considering making a change then? Is that right?
That's correct.
Yes. So the same, I notice, I've worked with clients from their early 20s to their 60s. And I notice the same kind of negative symptoms. They all have the same symptoms of like the anxiety, maybe the boredom, wanting to do something more creative. And really, for people who I work with who are older making a career change, we really focus on transferable skills and how to really use transferable skills to sell yourself so that you're not having to go in like right from the very bottom. Because I think, and this happens, I think, with everyone throughout their career, like we feel like we've done one career and then we want to go to something new and we feel like we've just wasted our time in that career. And oh my goodness, we have to start completely from the bottom. And I think with every career, there are some like very specific skills like language and terminology that we'll be using that like are not very applicable to a new career. But so much of that stuff is transferable skills and us learning like how to communicate and how to, you know, run projects successfully. And so, yeah, really like communicating transferable skills so that a person can go in not at the bottom, if that makes sense. I also notice with clients who are older, frequently their lives are just more set. And so they have, what's the word for it? Just more criteria. And so we tend to kind of work within that criteria more. So we're frequently not doing like completely crazy career changes where they're going to have to do blood, sweat and tears and work 70 hours a week to do all of that stuff because they have like kids or grandkids and now their priorities are really about spending time with those people. So oftentimes working with someone older, we might focus more on like what fits within your lifestyle a bit more. Whereas people who I work with that are younger, frequently they'll be a bit more like, yep, I could move places. I don't have a partner or kids right now, so I'm happy to like really go for this and study. Like I have one client who she's gone to work in the Foreign Service. And she's moving countries. She's going to go be living in France for a few years. And she was able to do that and kind of like make that really bold decision because she had the freedom to go and do those things. So I think sometimes with younger clients, like they don't have so much of the experience, but they can like throw more at it. And also sometimes not. Sometimes younger clients have a lot of criteria and are wanting to start a family, and so we work within that.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me. But you know, there are a lot of different phrases, words, terminology that get thrown out when we discuss the things that we do to generate income for ourselves. So there are jobs,
Yeah.
there are careers, there are callings.
Yeah.
So when you're coaching someone, how do you help them to figure out where they're at in that continuum? Because not everybody is looking for a career. That's not the season of life they're in. And not everybody is really trying to find their calling.
Yeah.
So how do you help people to understand the difference between those and to come to peace with where they are in their personal progression?
Yeah. Ooh, I like this. We do all of that in the self-discovery. And kind of, so in the self-discovery, we're exploring passions, we're exploring the kind of lifestyle they want to live, we're exploring the kind of work environment they want to be in, we're exploring the kind of skills they want to use. And as we do that, in conversation, we just tend to notice like, okay, what feels really big here? Like sometimes it just comes up. I have one client who just got offered a job on Friday, and for her, a big criteria was, I want to start a family really soon. This needs to be a job that supports me starting a family. And so I also want it to be something that is doing good for the world and where I'm helping people, but I'm more flexible on these other criteria of like super passion. So I think it comes from noticing what comes up in conversation, reflecting that back to my clients and just kind of having a conversation of, okay, what really feels most important here? And so I like how you have this job, career, calling. I'd be so curious to hear what you think these are. But to me, I think kind of calling, like personally, I relate to the word like calling or purpose for myself. And I think I was talking to my brother, and I was like, Arthur, I've just had to learn through career coaching and working with clients over the past X number of years that not everyone wants to find like the deepest thing within their soul of who they are and turn it into what they do for their work for the rest of their life. I was like, I've just had to realize that not everyone wants to do that. And that to me is kind of like a calling, like when you just feel it deep within your soul, like this is what I want to do. I'm going to make it happen. Like, it doesn't even necessarily matter, for me anyway, like, let me think how to say this, so much like the specific channel of how I'm doing my calling, as long as it feels really aligned to me and I get to kind of help people, if that makes sense. So that to me is calling, like it's your heart and your soul. And then I see career as something where the job that you're doing now can help you progress to a job maybe a bit more advanced, maybe a bit more within your skill set, maybe a bit more higher pay or something like that. And so you're kind of, I think the idea of a career ladder is a bit outdated in a lot of ways, but like you're getting to grow with each job, with each job. And then to me, job, I see as a thing that you're doing right now. It might lead to something else. It might not, but kind of more, like it has this more kind of present intention, if that makes sense. Yeah. I'm curious, what would you add anything to those, or do you have slightly different perspectives on them?
Well, no, it's pretty much the same. I mean, the way I look at a job is the job. I think the word you use, the present, is very true. It's, and I'm not saying this in any kind of a derogatory sense, but I think job is more short-term thinking.
Yeah.
It's like, I need to make money now.
Mm-hmm.
So what can I do to make money, to pay my bills?
Yeah.
And it's fundamentally just thinking that far.
Yeah.
A career is something where you're thinking a little more long-term and strategically, like knowing that this current job will lead to this new job, which will give me more responsibility and more impact and more money. Yeah. Then a calling is thinking very much strategically, like with a career, but it's much grander and it's driven more by impact than it is by revenue.
Yes.
Now, granted, in the perfect world, you'd have huge impact and huge revenue.
Yeah.
But it's putting that mission that you have, that purpose that you feel called to, making that the core.
Yeah.
And that is your payoff. Then the money you make is the bonus.
Yeah, and I think I really like that, and I think it's useful for me to hear, because just learning, what motivates people. And some people are motivated by the paycheck and by money, and other people are motivated more by impact. And I think that especially in coaching, that's really important and useful to help people identify what they're really motivated by. Yes, like money is important, but if money isn't really the thing that's going to motivate you, then money isn't really the thing that's going to like propel you towards fulfillment and happiness.
Right. So for people who are not feeling fulfilled, what are some of the tips that you can give someone to try and tap into that deeper need?
Yeah. I personally think it is about kind of connecting or reconnecting to joy for you. And I think a lot of it comes from like confidence and empowerment to explore that when maybe you haven't allowed yourself to do that in a long time. Maybe adulthood happened and life is all about like, well, I got to go to work, and then when I come home, I got to prep for dinner, and then I got to do this, and I got to clean the house, and maybe I've got to pick the kids up from school, and it's just all the like, I have to, I should, and reconnecting with like, well, what do you do for the joy of it, and what feels good for you, and what can you kind of explore doing, not because it has like a productive outcome, but just because it feels good for you. And so my first kind of encouragement to people would be to explore those things. So you could do that by, I love asking clients, and it's a big question that we explore together, like, what did you love doing as a kid? And then exploring those things. And maybe if as a kid you loved like riding your bike around. That doesn't mean you want to like get on a kid's bike and go ride around there. You don't need to do that anymore. But maybe there were aspects of it that you loved that you might still love. Like maybe you just loved like the wind in your hair and how free you felt when you were cycling down the road, and so maybe you could like go on some cycling trips. So that's a really nice one. Like, what did you love doing as a kid before like social expectations and should stuff really hit you? And then another one I think that's really nice is just what have you always been curious to try but maybe haven't given yourself permission to try, or maybe haven't found the time to try, and just playing around with those things. And I think like things that feel good lead you to more things that feel good, lead you to communities where you can meet other people with ideas that might inspire you. And I think from that you can learn more about what fulfillment is going to feel like for you. Like for me, for example, there's lots of different parts of fulfillment. It's about having a career where I feel like I'm making an impact in the way that feels meaningful to me. It's about really like having strong relationships with friends and families and my partner and really putting a lot of time into that. And then it's also about really doing creative things like painting and designing things and stuff like that. And so for me, it comes from just exploring and again, like pausing and noticing what feels really good for you.
Yeah, that's very solid advice. For me, I live as one of our mutual friends will always say to me is like, I live a portfolio lifestyle.
Ooh, this is cool.
So, so many different things that I do between the coaching and the consulting, the podcasting, the music, all these different things that I do. But while they're all different outlets or avenues, they're just ways of me expressing a facet of my personality, of my uniqueness. But I think sometimes that people get trapped into feeling like this one thing, whether it be this one job or this one relationship or this one activity, that has to be the source of all of their happiness.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about finding the things that bring you joy, I feel like, yes, it's a great thing. If you can find a way to take the things that truly bring you joy in life and make that your career, that's great. But if you can't do that, then you need to make sure that they're installed in your life in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. And I love kind of like having variety and having lots of different pieces to fulfillment, because like having just one of those pieces be the thing that is fulfillment to you is a very kind of like brittle, I suppose, way to live your life. Like you could be in the best job in the world and you could love it and you could be working for this amazing company, and the truth is that one day they could say you're not working for them anymore and you're and if that's what your whole identity and fulfillment and everything is based around, then that's going to feel real bad. And so like having these multiple areas, I think that's great, because also like there will be times at work when you're having a really bad day or a really bad month, and if that is the only thing that brings you fulfillment and meaning in your life, that's going to feel really scary if you're having a bad month at work. And so I love that, just having multiple areas that feel good and that can feel supportive and fulfilling to you.
Yeah. I actually kind of picked up on that lesson. This was many moons ago. This is when I was studying martial arts very seriously, and I was actually living with my teacher because his wife, who was a professional dancer and choreography and taught dance at a few universities, she contracted Lyme disease. And it went untreated, and she had all kinds of complications and was basically bedridden for several years.
Wow.
And I remember her talking to me one night about this darkness that she had to go through, because she said for all of her life, because she'd been dancing since she was a young kid, and that she made that her career. And then she said, all of a sudden, I had to realize, I always thought of myself as Kathy the dancer. And she said, I will never be Kathy the dancer again. And I didn't know who I was. And then she realized that the dance was just a way of her expressing who she was. The dance wasn't who she was. So I think so many times we get caught up in the defining ourselves by what we do.
Yeah.
I'm Mabel the coach. I'm Jose the musician. I'm George the accountant.
Yeah.
As opposed to I'm Mabel and I coach people.
Yeah.
So do you feel like there is a way that people can come to that conclusion without having to go through the hardship that some of us have had to go through in our lives to figure it out?
Yeah. Oof, because this is like, I'm Mabel the coach. Did you say Kathy the dancer? Then if we have kind of this mindset, our value in who we are is defined by what we do, not just intrinsic value in ourselves. And so I think what we're really doing there is we're creating a very kind of shaky value within ourselves. I'm Mabel, and I'm only valuable and kind of living within my identity and my truth if I'm doing this job. I make purpose statements with people. We do this in coaching. We go through their discovery, we build their compass, and then we write a purpose statement. And in a way, I think a purpose statement can be a challenging thing to write, and it's just one sentence, and you can't put the whole of you into one sentence. But what I really like about writing purpose statements is that your purpose statement is not like to be an HR specialist supporting people in the HR field. It is perhaps to share connection and meaning with other people to help people feel supported or something like that. It's a very like kind of fundamental who you are, what's important to you. It's fundamentally who you are, what's important to you, and roughly how do you want to share it with the world. And to me that's very grounding, because when I wrote my purpose statement, it has nothing to do with career coaching. It's about helping people feel like themselves and see meaning and beauty in the world. And I could do that in loads of different ways. And if my career coaching career like stopped one day, I could live out that purpose just by having conversations with people, or by doing the gardening, or by like painting a picture. And so, yeah, I think kind of finding purpose just in who you are and making that really clear. And then going out and finding a career that is aligned with that is the way that I like to do it, because it is based on you having value as a person, not just you having value once you found this career that will work for you.
Yeah. Well, that is very, very strong. And I completely agree with you on that when you can find that clarity and just start moving in the direction and let that be your guide.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest difference that we can make. And it doesn't matter what job you have.
Yeah.
If your purpose and your values is another word that gets tossed around a lot. If your values are to always be the best version of you, then it doesn't matter whether you're the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation or you're the janitor in the building that corporation is in. It's all about just doing your best job and always showing up. And I think sometimes we tend to equate the dollar signs with the value of what we provide. But the truth of the matter is those two are not inextricably connected.
Yeah. And just, who do you want to be in the world? And I think that's really important. I think, to me, personally, it's my personal opinion, the thing that the world needs most is just people who are being themselves, who are sharing their real selves with the world. Because when you walk down the street and you just see someone and you're like, oh, they're really like, they're just doing them, they're being themselves, and that inspires me to be myself. And I think, just like what you're saying, you can do that by having some really high up CEO career, and you can also just do that by like being an amazing person who, when you meet people, you just make them feel good. And that, to me, is the most important thing. It's not about the job title.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mabel, we could talk for hours on this, and I'm going to have you back at some point, and we'll continue these conversations. But I know that you have work to do.
It's true.
It's not a job. It's an adventure. So I'm going to have to sign off for today, but I really appreciate you taking the time. And if you have any questions for Mabel, there's contact information for her in the show notes. And certainly, if you have questions about career, she's a great resource. And I think to wrap it up, I hope that all of you listening understand the importance of coaching. And when you don't have an answer, when you're not sure of your next step, get a pair of outside eyes, and whether that be a trusted friend or family member or a professional like Mabel and myself. I think that outside perspective is the key, because it's going to allow you to see the things that either are hidden from you or you're just not wanting to face at the moment. So I really appreciate you, Mabel, and you're a living example of someone who is true to themselves. So
as are you. It's so fun to get to sit and chat with you. So thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So thank you for spending time with us today on this episode of the Personal Mastery and Growth Podcast. And make sure you like and subscribe and share this with friends. And especially if you have anybody who's got questions or concerns about their career, I think this is going to be a valuable resource for them. So until next time, folks, remember that it is what it is, but it becomes what you make it. So make it great. Thanks for tuning in. Before we wrap up, I just want to remind you that the information shared in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional advice or treatment. While the content of this podcast is based on research and personal experience, everyone's situation is unique, and the advice given may not be applicable to all. Always consult a qualified professional before making significant changes in your life. The Personal Mastery and Growth Podcast is recorded at the So Good Media Studios, located in the Candy Factory, a co-working space in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.